Black with Nahaja Black is sponsored by Scotiabank, Baja Retreat and Spa, J.S. Johnson, Bahamas Society of Human Resources, and Central Bank.
It's Hit Back with Nahaja Black.
Good afternoon, Bahamas. Welcome to the Hit Back. I'm your host, Nahaja Black. It is a beautiful day here in the 242. I hope that you are doing well, taking care of yourself, and living your best life today. Listen, I am actually reading an interesting book. I can't wait. I like books. Bahamian authors, can I say, I did a series some months back, 2020, I think. Can't remember. Where I asked for Bahamian authors to share their books with me, and so we can read. I'm reading a great book by a Shankola D. Roll. She ran into me at Fusion, and she just dropped this little nugget, this book called My Truth and What Kept Me. And it's a very fascinating read, short read, and it's already riveting. Her articulation, her penmanship, let's say penmanship, addiction, the way she tells a story, very interesting lines, right? So this is a line. This very fascinating stuff, right? The honor roll, GPA, and scholastic achievements helped to disguise and muzzle the lies sneaking out and intimate relationships that had become my norm. I was quickly spiraling out of control and sadly blindsided by the devastating path my decisions were constructing. So an invite to attend church with a friend meant only an opportunity to get dressed and go out, and was slotted in the friendship seat of my life's cycle. That's not bad. That's not bad. It's slotted in the friendship seat of my life's cycle. I like that line. That was pretty good. Shankola D. Roll, My Truth and What Kept Me. I'm going to finish reading this book. It's going to be pretty interesting. So far, so good. And I also got a great book called The Higher the Monkey Climbs by Mr. Coakley. I think it's A.J. Coakley. I got some really good Bahamian authors. Shout out to all of you who write. And I like novels too. So if you got a novel, haul out a sister. I want to know, right? We got a big show today. So if you haven't been following, you've been missing out on the news. Big news day. Which would be, you say, what's the big news, right? Hello to everyone who's watching online. I appreciate you, Facebook and YouTube. Don't worry. Don't forget, we stream live online all the time. So follow us there. But of course, there's no place like Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Use the TuneIn Radio app. Use the Guardian Radio app. You can also listen to us live on cable channel something. I would say it's 969 because it would make good sense. So that would be that would be pretty cool for that to happen. So there's so many ways that you can watch us. Plus, we are also on Facebook, Guardian Radio on Facebook. So I hope everyone is good and well. So we had a full show today, big show today. Shout out to my producer Wally, who's on the board today, taking good care of us as usual on the show. We had the Davis administration's first press briefing. Okay, their first press briefing was today. Prime Minister Davis was out of country, but I thought that it went very well. Honestly, I enjoyed it. It was brief, but it was filled with information and content. And when you say information and content, I spoke with some reporters afterwards, and they say, listen, it was quite a bit of fluff. But if we continue to have ministers show up and answer questions, that's good. They like that, because we had Minister of Housing, JoBeth Colby Davis, and she was very impressive. Can I just say, Sister Girl was good. Sister Girl was doing her thing. I so can't wait to give you some clips. I mean, thank you. It is cable channel 969. You can listen to us on the show, on cable, on TV, cable channel 969. Thank you, Terrell. She was very good. And then also they had Mrs. Wait, let me don't get the name wrong. A wonderfully brilliant Bahamian lady. I think it's Newbold, Mrs. Newbold, from the Department of Environment, talking about why we need to go, why there must be people who go to COP, this environmental meeting. And I'm sorry, forgive me, y'all forgive me. I was supposed to have all of my acronyms down, and I forgot all of it and left it downstairs. So it is. I'm ashamed. I have embarrassment, but let your judgment rot with you. So, anyways, and it was very good. I like the questioning. So here's one of the things that was an issue: was sending in your questions beforehand, right? So and there was this critique of how did it all look, right? How did it all look? Was it? Some said it looked very United Statesy. and I mean, it is there's something to say. It did have a good U.S. press. Dr. Rochelle Newbold, thank you, Keith. You guys are the best. Dr. Rochelle Newbold, she was fantastic. I mean, so astute in her delivery of why it's important that we do have a seat at the table as the Bahamas for folks who may question the delegation and why we need to go down when we talk about climate change. And the Paris Accord and all of these different treaties, but in particular, those that are important to us, like climate change. So we had the press conference today. Like I said, it was very good. Some of the pushback that came was that, hey, listen, the press were not comfortable with providing questions. What was argued by the new press secretary was that these questions will allow them to get the answer for you so that when you come to the press briefing, you can actually have content and not well, mainly the press secretary would say, I don't know that information. And that's what we've had before. It came across very professional, and I really did like it. I saw no issues with it. I actually did like it. It was filled with information. So I thought it was definitely a different standard approach to the new press briefing room. It was apparently a room that was just sitting there, but had other purposes, but it is right next to the office of the press secretary. So this room now has been outfitted, retrofitted, so that in the ceiling there are hanging microphones so that the press, when they spoke or asked questions, we were able to hear them. It was very professionally done. Some say it looked too much like the White House press briefings, and that can be a critique. But you really saw the standard by which we were looking to have these sort of informative exchanges. And as for someone such as myself, who waits, I get my information, predominant amount of my information from trusted sources, which are our journalists, and from other, from trusted sources. But something like this with this press briefing was very good for me, and I loved it. Someone said, yes, I agree, change the background. It definitely looked like the White House. I think that image was supposed to be the office of the prime minister that's behind them, but it definitely looks like the White House. It definitely does look kind of like the White House. I mean, it does. So someone said he's the best. Clint is the best. Okay. So I think it was very good, very professional. We had quite a few questions and answer period. The questions that were sent were answered to the best of their ability. The ministers did try their best to answer those questions. And so I thought that it was really good. I want to get this quick one before we go. And I'll bring in my good friend Cia, and you're on the other side of the break. But here is something that was interesting. So there were 3 points of interest that really captivated me in this press briefing. The first one was diplomats abroad were given this particular timeline by the Davis administration
to facilitate a decrease from 12 to 10%, the pension increase, a merchant shipping bill in keeping with the blue economy mandate. The purpose of the legislation is to bring much needed relief for the Bahamian people and set the foundation for economic recovery. While working towards its substantive legislative agenda and policy priorities, the government will be completing board appointments for all 140 boards by next week, Wednesday. Cabinet has been very active and busy going through that work. The government has also given a 90-day notice to overseas appointees to allow sufficient time for the winding up of ongoing affairs as a gesture of good faith in the interest of political maturity and government continuity. Stress that again, because sometimes we feel as if when a party comes into power, okay, everybody leave, go. No, the Prime Minister Davis has made it intentionally his mandate to allow there to be a smooth transition allow persons who are in office to continue working as they wind up their affairs so the business of the Bahamas internationally can continue and be transitioned smoothly.
So, what was said there, minus the extra, wanting to make sure that it was a feel good moment. Y'all catch that, because it was one of those moments where Clint wanted you to catch it, catch what we say, and we are going to give those who are abroad in those posts 90 days to transition, which was definitely a more mature approach. It was different from what we had initially heard, where we were told or thought to have been told that everyone was given their resignation. Actually, it was to turn in their resignation. I know of an ambassador at large who was requested an immediate resignation. So I'm not certain to whom. Maybe it is only the ambassadors who are abroad and not because like I said, I know one personally that was here at large in the OPM that was required to give up their post immediately. But that's good. I like the idea of the 90 days. Take your transition out of it. Make sure that internationally we don't look petty. I know that in Atlanta, there was actually some concern with because the consul general in Atlanta, she is a brilliant young woman. What's her name? Ambrista Roll. She's just really a very smart woman, very astute, did an excellent job, represented the country well in Atlanta as a consul general, and young, got great energy, vitality. And it's going to be sad to see her go. And I would hope that, and I know that these are appointed spot posts. You are appointed by the government, but someone like Mrs. Astra and Bristol Roll should find another space that she should not be relegated to another 5 years if this administration screws up, and God forbid we go back to, because that's what we do. We seem to go back and forth. Someone like Astra and Bristol Roll should keep a house in government. She's been excellent for us in Atlanta, but I know that there was some controversy there even. So I'm happy to know that we're mature enough to do the 90 days, and we'll see how that goes. But that was something that came out of this. We got more stuff out of this. Jo Beth Colby says the plans for Prospect Ridge were just a sketch. There was nothing there. You are listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black Guardian Radio. My good friend Cia Nuri will be joining us. We're going to dig a bit deeper. And did you know that as we get to the November 27th deadline or timeline for a new F&M convention, Iram Lewis has thrown his hat in the ring. Iram says, free at last to be the leader. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black Guardian Radio. We'll be back after.
What happened to you? You look like you lost your paycheck.
Man, I just realized I got scammed out of a bunch of money. They said I won this contest and just needed me to send them some money so I could collect. I mean, to expedite something. Or was it to smooth the process?
Man, you're smarter than that. Protect yourself against scams and fraud by following these tips. If you know you didn't enter a competition, you can't win. Never pay to receive a cash prize. If you're being asked, you're being scammed. Check trusted internet sites for verification of information given to you. Do not give your banking details to people you don't know. If it sounds too good to be true, it is. Monitor your bank account regularly for any questionable transactions. Get more information at getmoneysmartbahamas.com.
This traffic report is brought to you by Shield Insurance and Prudential Loss Adjusters.
In the first look at traffic now, the early afternoon traffic is already crowded with a few congested spots where traffic is really slowed down. The roundabout at Tony's Million Dollar and Samalabala Highway stands out first. It's loaded on all sides. You can see the Tony's Million Dollar west lane going into the roundabout is backed up. Both lanes have stop and go traffic, giving you some wait time to get through there. On the west side of that same roundabout, well, it's the heavy single lane of traffic that comes in off JFK. That's going to be consistent for the remainder of the afternoon. And then there's the dual lane of traffic that's coming through the Sports Center, passing Millennium Gardens there, really backed up and only slowly getting the traffic through the roundabout ahead. While that's one of the heaviest spots on New Providence at this time, you still got heavy traffic flows coming off of Robinson Road, the southbound lanes of Blue Hill Road, leaving there, also East Street. You got your regular dual lane stacked traffic trying to get ahead through the roundabouts there. That roundabout at East Street and Independence Drive, a bit busy. and it slowed the traffic down coming off East-West Highway, so you got a bit of a backup on East-West Highway as well. Now, those are where you have the heaviest wait time going on with traffic. Elsewhere, traffic is just busy. It's just moving. For example, West Bay Street. It's busy out there. You're just in a consistent ride west. Slow ride, of course, due to the amount of traffic moving along that thoroughfare. Inner City Wolf Road, same thing. You're just in a consistent ride of stop-and-go traffic due to the amount of traffic that's moving along that thoroughfare. And Bernard Road coming into the Wolf Road intersection is busy in both directions at this point with stop-and-go traffic. So it's not that we have many congestions going on, but we do have a lot of traffic moving about the street that will slow your ride down. This National Traffic Report this time brought to you by Dr. Danny Johnson Associates at Foot and Ankle International, who's offering the simplest and safest treatment for foot injuries, ingrown toenails, corns, heel pain, and more. That's 302-5402 for more info. With the Riders Guy, look at traffic in real time. DANN.
Michael was in a horrible car accident. Prudential Loss Adjusters managed his claim and got him the settlement he deserved. Sierra's roof received hurricane damage. Thanks to Prudential, she and her kids are happy with their claim settlement. Tammy fractured her ankle in a slip and fall. Prudential saved her time, money, and peace of mind. Prudential Loss Adjusters are here for you whenever a tragedy strikes. Call 322-4026 now.
Don't wait for disaster to strike. This hurricane season, be ready. Protect your home with an affordable and comprehensive home insurance policy from Shield Insurance. You can't control what nature blows your way, but with Shield Insurance, you can rest easy as you ride out the storm. Protect your largest and most valuable investment. Don't take a chance. Put your home in our hands.
Shield Insurance agents and brokers in Nassau. Call 356-7202 or Freeport 352-5945.
Calling all HR professionals. It's Human Resources Professionals Week. Join us for the 41st Annual B-Sherm Conference and Expo, Friday, October 29, 2021. Hear from our 18 industry-leading speakers, enjoy lunch powered by Craven, visit exhibitors in our virtual expo, and so much more. To learn more, email us at conferencebsherm@gmail.com. We'll see you at B-Sherm Conference 2021.
This is Guardian Radio, your station for up-to-the-minute news, intelligent, interactive, and engaging conversation. 96.9 FM.
You have to be strong in today's world. Keep your focus and what you believe in, how to achieve all your dreams. Keep moving forward. Never accept less than who you are. Live your best life. Be strong and free. It's the Hit Back.
And we're back. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. I want to welcome my good friend, C.A. Nuri, with me on the show. C.A., darling, how are you today?
I am always good. And I started off unmuted, so it is going to be a good show.
This is what I like. You're a smart man. At the start of the show. This is big.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So we had our first press briefing today. Which came, of course, it had all of its own hoopla, but I was very impressed by the presentation of it. I think it was very wise to get the questions beforehand so that the press secretary can get the information, get the responses from the ministers. But on top of that, something that I really liked also was that you would have some ministers, especially with the news of the day, someone like Mrs. Jo Bethel, she was in prime form today. If it was the first time you're really getting to see her as the Minister of Housing, we've seen her walk about and do tours, but this one was more substantive. But let me get your overall thoughts on it before we get to some clips.
I definitely enjoyed it. I enjoy watching it. It was well performed. I was good seeing Mrs. Davis there. I didn't anticipate her presence. I thought it was just going to be the press secretary. But to see her present and be able to feel and answer questions was wonderful to see. You see that she was well prepared. She understood the questions and was able to give detailed information on what is happening. So I was very impressed with that. Definitely having the questions beforehand made it easier to appreciate the answers. Clearly, Mr. Watson was well prepared. He had detailed information, and that's what you want. This gotcha moment that some press like to take advantage of, it clearly is not benefiting us as a people. You want questions answered, you want detailed information, and this seems to be one of the better ways to do that.
Yeah, it felt very professional, felt very mature, like we were maturing a bit on the way we gather information here from within the government. I was,
and I want to
I was,
interject there. Forgive me. I
uh,
don't. I'm not sure if I'm comfortable with the word. It felt very professional. I find that most things that we do in the Bahamas is of a professional nature, and I expect
no,
no less.
no,
I've
you
never
know
seen
that.
a
Yeah, we
press
can't.
conference happened in the Bahamas that was not particularly unprofessional. I mean, if you can name one that was definitely not professional, then I shall yield. And because
Well,
the
okay. So,
compliment,
what when I say, maybe I need to clarify because I'm not going
yeah,
to change the
clearly,
word
yes, yes,
professional.
yes.
I'm not going to
You
change
to
the
me, it
word.
sounds like if you're diminishing previous
No,
press
that's what you look.
conferences.
You're looking to be sensational in that. This is still indeed a
No,
compliment on the
I
process.
just said
Yes.
it was nice. It was
No, it
very,
is. And
put
by
together.
no means did my word professional ever have any intention. So only you could be looking for some way to demean the press. But
No,
it was very
no.
professional in the way it was done, its production, its execution, its intention was executed. That is professionalism. And so I have no qualms with it. Now, if you're by any means saying, okay, well, the calling out for re-speaking to ministers out of cabinet, that was the standard. So the standard has been changed. So the standard was always done. If it was that we're in cabinets on Tuesday, we're outside. That was the standard. And at its standard, it was always done very well. So now we have a next standard and a standard that to me gives us the maximum, not, well, I hope not the maximum. I think we can even be better, but gives us at its next level a better output. So for me, that's a level in professionalism where we are executing, questions are being asked and fully answered in a professional way. So I won't say that it's
I'll try not to belabor it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm saying that by the verbiage of using professional hints that it wasn't professional before. There are two different segments. We have segments of reporters speaking off the cuff to ministers on the go. And then we have press conferences. We have had press conferences similar to this before. And to say that this was
which ones are we talking? Which
that we that the press perhaps was never professional in a forum like that where there's an answer and question period.
No,
before
that's y'all trying to someone trying to be crafty.
Had a number of press conferences where he fielded and answered questions to the press, and they were very.
Oh, you're talking about with the former press secretary.
Yes, not necessarily that. I'm just talking about it in general to suggest that this was very professional. Hence, as if you're interpreting that once the press conferences we had before was not professional, and I'm very uneasy with that.
Someone says, to the petty, all things come across as petty. I agree. But I get your point, Cecil. I get your point.
Well, like I said, the verbiage, I got to defend the press because the press.
Well, there's no need to defend the press. There's no need to defend the press. But if you feel the need to, because maybe you're attacking the press.
No, man, I was just kind of uneasy by the word that it was very professional. Make it seem as if our press is kind of debased in some kind of way. And I find that at all of the press conferences is always professionally done. I've never come across a press conference that was.
But you are the one belaboring a non-issue. I just want you to know that.
I just want to make sure that you were not saying
a non-issue because I will say professional.
All I want to do is make sure that you're not saying that the press conferences before was not professional. That's what I want.
And you're belaboring a non-issue. So let's move on. All right.
So all were professional. That's what just making sure.
Yeah, no, we'll continue with what I said. This was very professional. All right. So we got something else I wanted to make a note of too.
Priority was to look at how we can assist the persons in Abaco, because we understand that they suffered a great loss 2 years ago, and there's a great need for us to do some work down there. So in Abaco, we are ready to begin the tender process for the construction of the road for a 21-lot subdivision in Spring City. The tender document has been drafted, and as soon as the final approval is given, we will move forward in getting the 3 bids for the road works. And it is expected that this process will take us about 4 to 5 weeks. Fortunately, we have the price from the Water Corporation for installation of water lines, and they do not have to go out for bids on that. However, because of the workload that BPL presently have in Abaco for the work that they're doing, they have requested that we go out to the private sector for electrical work tendering. So this will be done the same time simultaneously with the road works that we'll be commissioning.
Sorry. Thanks. I didn't give a proper intro, CA. So first things first, this is her talking about Abaco. I wanted to get your thoughts on anything that jumped out to you with Abaco.
To me, I think the development of Abaco is slow paced, and I understand why, because they had other destruction, right? We know we had some promises of some housing, and it didn't come to fruition. There was no mass building of any kind of housing. In fact, they put people in domes. I still have no idea how the people are doing who are living into the domes. I don't know if people are still living in tents. I don't know if the shanty towns were rebuilt and they're swelling. None of that is known at this present time. So to see that the minister is making the effort to go to Abaco and make sure that be a priority in terms of building houses is something astounding and something to be proud of. And I say kudos to her, right? It shows what is on the government's mind in general. Now, that being said, I would hope that, I'm sure they did. They did their due diligence in regards to affordability of housing. What type of housing should be made? I think it's 140 lots, they said. Can the people of Abaco afford that? Or are these going to be free houses they plan to give people? Are they planning to give discount? How are they going to finance these things, right? Because we know that the Abaco economy is depressed. Can these people afford the house, right? And it reminds me of a time when they built some houses in Kamika Road and they lay empty for years, right? For whatever reason it was. I just don't want to see these houses in Abaco are empty because the Abaconians cannot afford it at this present time. And I'm hoping, and I'm sure they did it. Like I said, I don't want to preempt them and because they did the due diligence already. I'm just saying I have concerns of it being built and there is nobody able to afford it. And I'm hoping that they create low-cost homes, no more than $100,000, and that's kind of pricey by itself, especially for a family island, that persons are able to afford and move into these houses as soon as possible.
I wonder though, I mean, look, geez, 100,000, even at low-cost homes, the cost to build is so high. That would mean it's like a tiny home, sort of. 100,000. Low-cost housing is not what it used to be.
I understand, but imagine trying to afford $100,000. That's not a lot of money to afford. That's a lot. I mean, that is a lot of money to try to afford.
What I think needs to be, and all of great questions that you asked, but and that's one of those things that further down, and she's very interesting. I don't know. I've never met her. I don't know her. So this would be my first introduction into who JoBeth Colby is. Obviously, we know of her, but this would be the first time in this role. So I heard her inclination seems to be, or what she said is, she wants to get Bahamians into homes. But we've had ministers say that before. But I think, and you asked some pertinent questions, but even in the pricing, this goes to Prospect Ridge. So I would gather if her position is the same with Prospect, it must be the same with all. But this is where we'll see, right? This is where we'll see where, like they say, mouth could say anything at the beginning, but let's go with what we've got now. So we continue on. Now it leads into Prospect Ridge. And I think this is where it gets interesting as well.
There are other sites that we are working on in Abaco, and I've spoken to MP Pinder and also the MP Cornish down there for work and how they want us to assist other areas. But at this time, we are working harder to complete the Spring City first, or at least put the contractors in place before we move on to Central Pines and Sands Cove 2, which will be very shortly. As it relates to the very popular Prospect Ridge project, we have had a number of meetings related to this project with my technical team, and they also went out to do a site visit for me to determine where we are and how we could respond to the demands that presently exist and all of the applications that we presently have. Unfortunately, there's a lot of groundwork that must be done that has yet to be started as it pertains to that project work related to a master plan. I've spoken to the company that was previously engaged by the former administration, and absolutely nothing has been done yet. In fact, they got a letter advising them that they were awarded this project probably about 2 or 3 days before the election. So nothing has been done in terms of creating a master plan to do the work at Prospect Ridge to begin to draw out how it will actually look. There's been no feasibility study and no topography study to actually provide us with the lay of the land, what lumps and bumps presently exist, and how we would have to fill it in. And so we are not in a position yet to determine the infrastructural cost. We think it will be great, but that is yet to be determined because we'll get all that information from the feasibility and the topography study. And so we have a lot of groundwork to do, and we want to do it right. My technical team is building itself up so that we can provide the right information to Cabinet and to the Bahamian public so we're able to produce, if we can actually go forward with the project, which we are hoping and we're confident that we'll be able to do this development, but it may not be in the time that originally was provided, because we want to be sure that these studies are completed and we have enough information to determine cost and timing for the Bahamian public.
All right, so we got to take a quick break, CA, but I know you have a thought on that as well. No topography, no feasibility study. She's saying nothing was done. Nothing was done, and there might be some more costs that haven't been said. She's, in essence, saying, I don't even know how they came up with that number. How you come up with 50,000? You ain't gonna. We're going to take a quick break, CA. I want your thoughts after this. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. We'll be back right after this.
Sugar, sugar, let's get sugary. Softer, smoother, and amazing skin. Oh, sugar, sugar, we're the sugar ladies, giving you skin soft as a baby's. Goodbye hair, we'll take good care of you.
Come visit us at Baja Retreat Spa on East Bay Street. Contact us at 323-6711. Or visit us online at www.baharetreat.com.
Attention all students in grade 4 to 12. You think you know about money? Well, the Central Bank of the Bahamas is giving you a chance to prove it and win cash in the 2021 Get Money Smart Bahamas Video Essay Competition. Can you tell us why you think the Bahamian economy is an ideal model for digital financial services? If you can, just produce a short video submission before October 22nd and show us you are money smart. Cash prizes will be given in various age categories, but you must get your parents' permission to enter. For more information, visit www.getmoneysmartbahamas.com or see our post on social media.
At a time when jobs are hard to find, crime is a concern, and Bahamians are uncertain about the future of the country, there is one paper you can rely on as your source of news and commentary. The Nassau Guardian delves deeper into the issues. We ask the tough questions. We tell your stories. If you haven't already, pick up a copy today. The Nassau Guardian. News and views that matter since 1844.
Wait, why you look so mashed up like clothes at the washer?
No, wait, just a hard day. What?
Hard day? What happened? The breakfast lady ran out of tuna and gritty.
We need to start joking with everything, you know. This serious, boy. This really serious, boy.
Wait, what's serious? Tell me.
All right, well, today, boss gave us, boy, one big contract. And nobody else get a chance and nobody say nothing.
Wait, you know that ain't right. You know government contracts ain't supposed to go that way?
Yeah, but nobody's saying nothing. Boss man just tell people to sign the papers. Then he send me to meet his boy downtown and collect this envelope.
You need to tell somebody. You need to become a whistleblower.
You know he's a real man, but I never blow no whistle like he drunk all my life and junk.
No way. A whistleblower is someone who tells people what they see when they see something wrong happening at work.
But I ain't no whistleblower, and I ain't no snitch. I still white man.
Wait, ain't nobody can know it's you. All you gotta do is call Crime Stoppers, or you could text them from inside the Crack Crime Bahamas app. They don't ask about you, and your call goes straight through to Miami, so nobody know you is. And if you text, your message get mixed up like Kong Salad.
Call 328-8477 from Nassau or 242-300-8477 from the Family Islands.
You have to be strong in today's world. Keep your focus and what you believe in, how to achieve all your dreams. Keep moving forward. Never accept less than who you are. Live your best life. Be strong and free. It's the Hit Back with Natasha Black. It's the Hit Back with Natasha Black. It's the Hit
And we're back. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. My good friend C.A. Nuri joining me on the show. All right, C.A., your thoughts on what the Minister of Housing said, JoBeth Colby, that there was no feasibility study, no topography study, there was no master plan at all, nothing that really shows any information on this project. Your thoughts on that?
It was damning, eh? I was shocked to hear such things. One would assume that the former prime minister, the current leader of the opposition, should respond to that, to see if what he said is not to see, and that's a bad wording. I was going to say to see if what she said is true, but definitely she has access to the files, so I assume that it is true. But definitely that there's a need for a response. I hear the need for the topography, which is basically the land out in terms of whole situation. But Prospect Ridge is high end, right? It's high end, and there are other subdivisions in that area. So I assume that they would use that type of the previous landmass and projects as a comparison to it. But this is what I wanted to say because of that. This is what I wanted to say. Is there a need for a high-end development for middle-class Bahamians sponsored by government? And that should have been the debate. I never thought. I remember we questioned this before on your show. Who is this housing project for? Usually you try to get housing projects for working class people, right? Why your major project is for persons who can afford to go to the bank and purchase their own home, build their own home.
Well, and to be fully transparent, I have been in support of this housing project. I have been one of those. This is one of those things that the government did where I'm like, this is excellent, especially for young people who are in the middle. There's a lot of millennials, and the younger millennials are in the middle, education, but not good income. Right. There are a lot of, and my only issue was the age, really, because you have a lot of people who find themselves at 46, 47, still struggling to get a mortgage. There are a lot of more females who are, do you remember, CA, one of the comments that drove me crazy early on was Denicio de Aguilar saying that you need to, don't break up with your boyfriend now, stay in that relationship so you can get a house, or Ellsworth Johnson saying, build your house out of pocket. These people were so tone deaf, like they don't have an idea of how difficult it is to get a mortgage. Hell, trying to get a second mortgage when you have equity, you try that. When you actually have assets, it's just as hard. So trust me, there is a need and a space for quite a bit of younger people. That is something that can revolutionize someone's life, in terms of having an asset younger in life, so that when you are 40, or when you are, for some, if they're 40 and they're getting this their first home, and probably be their only. But if you're 25, that can change the trajectory of a family. It makes generational wealth. So that is something where I think it's a leg up. The problem is it wasn't something I thought could be sustainable. Would a next government make it something that is a sustainable practice? Now we go to this point, though, this point of this discussion. And the question that was asked next was by Kyle Joaquin. Was this a campaign that based on how the minister presented it, it was definitely something that was not even real. It wasn't reality. So he asked, is this a campaign? Oh, wait, sorry.
Well, what I will say is The fact that you have a billboard that has a photo, but you have no master plan. One wants to know where that photo came from. So did they grab it off of Google? I don't know. But we have no master plan, which will actually provide you with the completed look of the subdivision. And the fact that that doesn't exist means I don't understand where the numbers came from for the land costs and where the pictures came from.
Well, what a time. I don't understand where the numbers came from. The picture, did they get it from Google?
It was lovely shade, and I appreciate good shade, and that was well put, and I enjoyed it. I did. It was a sketch.
Yeah, it was a sketch.
It was a sketch. It is what it is. It was a sketch.
For me though, it's disappointing, right? It's disappointing.
It's more than disappointing, Nahaja. Yeah. It almost reeks of something sinister, right? And I think that such things need to be investigated. How was that brought about when there was no master plan? What was the objective? And it wasn't even last minute. It was months before.
Months before.
They had time enough to put things in place. They said, "Well, I know some persons who went and spoke to their bank to secure a loan to get into that place." So to me, it had to be real. If they go into the bank and the bank giving them pre-approvals and say, "Yes, you can go, take advantage of it."
Don't forget, 300 applicants were approved, right? Out of 1,500. So that there must have been something real. But what the minister is saying is that nothing happened, no master plan or anything. She continues to go on, and it was interesting.
Selection process for those individuals who would have applied for the Prospect Ridge project. How's that process going? Is it complete?
What I will say is we have a number of applications in for Prospect Ridge. We have a number of applications in for Carmichael. In order for us to actually begin calling persons back and advising them that they have been approved, we need to know clearly what the project costs will be, because they would have been providing letters from the bank that gave them pre-approval amounts that they can actually get a mortgage for. And in order to determine if they would fit into the category of that subdivision, we have to determine our actual costs. And so I wouldn't say anyone is out of luck in terms of being a part of that project. What my priority is to make sure that I help as many Bahamians as I can to become homeowners. But I want to make sure I do it in the right way. So,
hi, Rashad Rose from the Tribune.
Hi, Rashad.
Yeah, I think one of the things the former administration would say is that in order to provide affordable housing, what they wanted to do is, regardless of how much the Prospect Ridge project would cost, they were willing to absorb a lot of that cost just to keep the pricing for the people who applied to a reasonable degree. So are you able to say that flat out the government, the Davis administration, is not committing to absorbing
no.
the amount of cost?
The purpose of an affordable...
And make sure that y'all got that question. The question was by a very sharp journalist with the Tribune, Rashad. Rashad asked the question to Ms. Colby, is it your position that the Davis administration is not committing to absorbing those costs associated with this property or project? Because what is now being said by the new Minister of Health, not Minister of Health, sorry, the new Minister of Housing, JoBeth Colby Davis, is that we need to check out the cost, right? We need to figure out what the property actually will cost. And if there may be an increased cost, then we might have to I thought at first they were saying we're going to turn this cost over to you because it might be higher. So there might be a higher cost.
That's what I heard too, Nahaja.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right. So this is her response.
Nahaja, it still goes back to my initial question. Is there a need to facilitate high-end housing for middle-income, middle-class young professionals? And if there is a need for that, if there is a need, and you suggest that there is, the last administration suggested and committed that they will have a set price and will basically endorse whatever new price or extra cost for it. And it doesn't seem as if this administration will commit to that. and it seems as if it will be more than $50,000 for the property, and it's going to be more expensive in general.
So then this is her response to that question. Is the Davis administration not willing to absorb this cost? And someone says there is no middle class, CA. There is no middle class.
Affordable housing program ran by the government is to be able to allow a certain particular category of persons that wouldn't generally be approved to become homeowners to be able to become homeowners. So at the front of our administration, the priority is to make sure we allow for more Bahamians to become homeowners. However, I cannot work blindly. I must be able to say what costs the Davis administration will be absorbing when I go and present my case to the cabinet. And so in order for me to say that and confidently, I have to be able to be provided the information. And that's why I need to get all of the groundwork done. But we will ensure that we provide affordable housing to the Bahamian public. That's
given your revelation just now, you understand that there will be a lot who are looking forward to this who are now losing confidence.
Well, I don't want anyone to lose confidence. Let me say that. I don't want anyone to lose confidence, but I want them to know that when I provide information to them, it's correct. And I've done my research, and the amount that I give them will be a sure amount that they can become homeowners. And so I will say to the Bahamian public, I am working for them. I am working to do this right, and I'm working to provide them with the avenue that they become homeowners. And so don't lose confidence. It just may be a little bit more time added, but don't lose confidence. And I am not out to turn their applications. It matters not to me who they are. I want to make sure that Bahamians are provided with the correct information.
CA, your thoughts? I thought she was strong in her presentation. I thought she came across as believable. I thought that she did drop some, that Prospect Ridge, Prospect Ridge doesn't even have close to a plan. I thought it was a strong performance or presentation for the first outing at a press briefing for Ms. JoBeth.
It was definitely strong, Nahaja. Still, I have no idea what is the plan for Prospect Ridge, the development there. And we have to wait. She said to be patient, and we will have to be patient. She hinted that it's not under her government's mandate to. Her government mandate is to provide housing for persons who are not usually able to afford housing. That is her primary mandate. So again, when I suggested whether this Prospect Ridge, this high-end, middle-end, high-end housing project is under the purview of this administration, it does not seem so. It seems as if it's going to be put in the back burner in order to be replaced by lower income housing instead of this high income housing. And she hinted towards it several times, and I'm not sure if we accepted the hint that she saying that is not the priority of this administration at this time.
Someone says, how can you provide, let me move that for a second. How can you provide affordable housing if you haven't done a study on income? We need data. Then you can say these people can't afford housing. And listen, infrastructure, funny thing that this infrastructure conversation is still going on, because we know that there's an infrastructure conversation with Ramon Miller, infrastructure conversation with the Golden Girls, that infrastructure was not put in. And apparently you can have years of struggle putting in infrastructure. We had a caller, I think from BPL, talk about the polls and the cost of it being so exorbitant. But now the government the government is now saying, okay, we're going to do this, right? And the question, there's so many questions now, CA, so many questions of accountability, transparency, responsibility. All of these things are now questions that have to be presented to the table. So what do we want done? So if I come in and I say, listen, this property is going to cost you $50,000, but that $50,000 does not include any form of infrastructure. And you mentioned Prospect Ridge being high end, right? And in terms of location, you're right. Topography is a whole other thing. Have you ever had your property surveyed from from your land and survey inspector?
Yeah, yes. And in fact, they had to try to add extra taxes onto me. So they came and do the whole, anyway.
Listen,
yeah.
Isn't it expensive just to get it surveyed? Like our property, for God's sake, just to get it surveyed is crazy money. And that's as an individual. But then you have to do these, and you bring in your architect, and hopefully your architect walks the property with you to make sure, because a good architect will say, let's check out the topography of your property, right? If you live out in my area, sinkholes are abundant. You hope you don't have one in your property. Sinkholes will cost you so much money just to fill them. So now I would have hoped that we've been having all of these tools within government. We would have already used those tools to assess the actual, not just the value of the land, but the cost of the land, the cost of developing the land. Ask anyone who's had to develop any piece of land. Funny thing, Tennyson Wells Jr. or Tennyson Wells II did an article with and Yuri Kemp, the former DNA candidate and now reporter for the Tribune, wrote an article or a piece with Tennyson Wells Jr. Second. Of course, you know, they have developments all across the Bahamas, the Wells family. And he actually said this last year, or from the project started, that land would be exorbitantly expensive just because of the topography of the land. I didn't even know this, Cecil. Did you know that? Did you know that there was this write-up on that
I saw that
months ago?
I saw that he posted it some time ago. But see, I still appreciate the fact that the government was selling the land itself, and the development of the land will become on the owner, the onus of the purchaser.
That's crazy,
now,
man.
If you happen to buy a property that has sinkholes, it has nothing to do with the government. The government said go to the bank and get the loan, and then the loan, I assume, will include the price of fixing the sinkhole and whatever else you need to do, right?
Yeah.
But the government was selling the property by itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Someone says, you are right, CA. I am of the same impression that the Davis administration priorities would be those who are less able to afford homes. They are not saying it, but you get the impression that they believe this prospect project is one of those special interest plots. So I think this is going on the back burner at best, a rebrand. I think it's interesting. I didn't get that, but maybe you guys are right. Maybe you're right. What I didn't get was a full answer of what we are, going to do. We're going to get the plans. We're going to see what happens. But I think the biggest takeaway is we got a bunch of land here, but it ain't making much sense right now because we don't know what's going on with it. But I won't lie to you, boy, if that changes the cost of building, CA, and if I have 2 years to build, yes, and I can't get infrastructure, I just got screwed myself with land that I can't afford to build on, but with a 2-year timeline to build on it. I think that's something worth noting.
Yes. But we know for a fact that Carmichael Road, the Carmichael development is going on, and also the Abaco development is going on. So yeah, that looks like a shoe-in.
They look certain. Yeah. You're right on that. We'll be back right after this. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian Radio 96.9 FM.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
This is your Guardian News update on the hour. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Berthany McDermott. Thanks so much for tuning in. Here's what's making news. Central Grand Bahama Member of Parliament Iram Lewis, the first to announce his plans to offer himself for leader at the FNM's convention in November. In a statement this afternoon, Lewis said it's time for a change and added that the decision of so many FNMs to decide not to vote for the party on September 16th, in spite of their productivity, sends a clear and powerful message to the organization. The party will meet on November 27th for the convention. It's still unclear who else will offer themselves for the leadership post, including if sitting leader Dr. Hubert Minnis will be a part of that race. However, it's rumored that Marco City MP Michael Pintard will throw his hat in the race. With the new government comes new appointments here at home and overseas. Press Secretary Clint Watson today said those ambassadors and consulates overseas have been given their 3-month notice for the completion of their duties and to return to the country.
The government has also given a 90-day notice to overseas appointees to allow sufficient time for the winding up of ongoing affairs as a gesture of good faith in the interest of political maturity and government continuity. Stress that again, because sometimes we feel as if when a party comes into power, okay, everybody leave, go. No, the Prime Minister Davis has made it intentionally his mandate to allow there to be a smooth transition, allow persons who are in office to continue working as they wind up their affairs so the business of the Bahamas internationally can continue.
And Housing Minister JoBeth Colby-Davis said absolutely nothing has been done with the Prospect Ridge development announced by the Minutes administration earlier this year. She said there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Insert.
I've spoken to the company that was previously engaged by the former administration, and absolutely nothing has been done yet. In fact, they got a letter advising them that they were awarded this project probably about 2 or 3 days before the election. So nothing has been done in terms of creating a master plan to do the work at Prospect Ridge to begin to draw out how it will actually look. There's been no feasibility study and no topography study to actually provide us with the lay of the land, what lumps and bumps presently exist and how we would have to fill it in. And so we are not in a position yet to determine the infrastructural cost.
Well, that's a look at stories making news at this hour. For the Guardian News Network, I'm Berthany McDermott. Stay with us. AP Update is up next.
Tired of banks forcing you to use technology to bank the way they want you to? Your convenience is important. So no matter what your banking needs, Commonwealth Bank's friendly staff are always available in branch for that personal one-on-one service. But when you choose technology, our online and mobile banking app offers you state-of-the-art functionality. The choice is yours. Commonwealth Bank. Bank the way you want.
Coronavirus update. I'm Ed Donahue with an AP News Minute. Stocks finished mixed. The Dow up 152 points. Details are being put in place once federal regulators approve coronavirus shots for children 5 to 11. Here's the AP's Julie Walker.
The White House plans to supply COVID vaccines for 28 million children, targets almost every medical provider that kids would have access to, says COVID response coordinator Jeff Zients.
We have secured vaccine supply to vaccinate every child ages 5 through 11. And as soon as the vaccine is authorized by the FDA, we will begin shipping millions of doses nationwide.
Within hours of the formal approval of the Pfizer shot for children, which is expected after the CDC advisory meeting scheduled for November 2nd and 3rd, Zients says 15 million doses will ship with millions more to follow weekly. The U.S. bought 65 million doses, making it free to everyone who wants it. I'm Julie Walker.
And I'm Ed Donahue.
This is Guardian Radio, your station for up-to-the-minute news, intelligent, interactive, and engaging conversation. 96.9 FM.
You have to be strong in today's world. Keep your focus and what you believe in, how to achieve all your dreams. Keep moving forward. Never accept less than who you are. Live your best life. Be strong and free. It's the hit back with the hashtag black. It's the hit back with the hashtag.
And we're back. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. My good friend C.A. Nuri joining me today on the show. Okay, so CA, here is one, and we have another guest who's to join us. Nicolette Bethel is going to be joining us. Hopefully she gets on and we get all of our connections sorted out. So I'm excited to have her join the show. And I know you're a big fan as well, CA. Okay, so talking about this, it was an interesting comment, and I'm getting some really good comments here. Shannon Lee says, the usable, viable land is running out. The barriers to home ownership are too high for the average wage earner, as land has become one of our bargaining chips to attract investors. The build to the sky will be inevitable, but to keep it low cost, quality will be sacrificed. Low cost condos will become the projects that we see in the US. And I totally agree. I
don't believe in low cost condos. I see what it becomes in the United States. In fact, growing up in the inner city, I see what happens in government complexes, government apartments, and I don't think that's where we should be moving now. We have a lot of land.
We already have government complexes, but that's not what they're talking about.
But see, I know what happens when you put a number of persons in cramped situations. It's not good for us. Have you gone to Windsor Place and see the government apartments?
But have you gone to Venetian West? Have you?
Are they government apartments in the Venetian West?
But my point is, there are also
they come with
townhouses
poor
and
people.
condos.
Now you want to go with rich people. You know, I'm trying to say certain y'all can live in apartments. That's okay. We middle income, working class people need space. So when our neighbors get us mad, we don't burn down the whole apartment complex. You know, see, not everything can fit for working class people, and I don't think apartments is good for us.
Well, listen, the property we're having, and I think you there are some challenges, right? There are some challenges with what you're arguing, right? And I see where you're trying to go with this. I see where you're trying to go.
I like it.
But the lower class, the lot at 50,000, which it won't be 50,000. I figure after they look at all of the costs, it'll end up being 70,000. By the way, any property out west that is more than 6,000 square feet in that particular area that right now is less than $100,000, that's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome.
And we talk about two different tangents.
No, but so if it goes to 70,000 for working class, for the young executive, that's still reasonable if it means that infrastructure is in place. And all it is, I think that the former administration was trying, I hope that's what they're trying to do, but they didn't go ahead and give me any sort of infrastructure. So I don't know what they was really trying to do. Since nothing was real, apparently, nothing was done. But in the idea that was presented, I think that what they were to give a lot of people who find themselves in that in-between space. I make X dollars. I make $34,000 a year. I go to a good job every day. I have a reasonable income. I may be single because now I'm a particular millennial that ain't got no children. I'm single, but I want to get a home and I don't want to shack up to do it. So now the bank isn't being that gracious. Maybe if I can go in this area, I want to move in this area, but to get a property is $125,000. I want something different, and this is an opportunity to get it. And I saw nothing wrong with that. I thought it was something, understanding how it can help. I saw nothing wrong with that. And their mindset is different as well, we would hope. So I don't see it as...
And Nahaja, I think we're talking about two different things.
Okay.
I listened to what you read, and I thought she was speaking about, the comment was speaking about low-income housing and the need to have Bahamians move into apartments in general, not high-end apartments. That's what I interpreted it as. No. I have no problem with having persons who want to live in condominiums, live in condominiums if they want it. So that's ideal for some certain people.
Yeah,
I just don't like having neighbors too close to me. That's just me.
That's old school, right? Like we definitely. I'm not one. I don't like all of these neighbors, man. I really don't like all these neighbors. I don't like all these neighbors. But I love my neighbors. I'm not saying I don't love my neighbors. I just don't like the whole across the hall and everything. That ain't my thing. But we all like yard. That's how we grew up too, right?
I need to grow my cassavas.
Even if it was a little yard, you like your yard. Nahaja, who's in charge of this Prospect Ridge development? Was it the newly minted senator? Someone needs to be made to respond to these assertions. You're right. These people don't want no house built by her election campaign door. I don't know what that means. Just a question, Nahaja. Should the minister have said my government as opposed to I? Just asking, as I really don't know. I can't recall, but perhaps she should have. I would have to think of where she said it, but perhaps she shouldn't have. Government complexes are the mainstream housing in Singapore, and it works. Very true. Very true. Said, I agree with the gentleman. I will live under my floor before I live in a 20-plex.
I just can't do it.
But listen, as land gets scarce, that's what's going to end up happening.
We have a lot of land, Nahaja. When the land gets scarce, we can consider that. But at this present time, there's a lot of land out there.
So then build the houses separate. Build them all. But that's what the plan is. I mean, we're going off topic on that one. But the text was interesting. I like that text. That was good. But the plan was, was there any multi-property on that as an option? But we talking about nothing because there was no plan. Like, we really talking about air because minister said, I gotta play that one more time for fun, because the minister said nothing of the sort exists.
We have
Nothing.
had a number of meetings related to this project with my technical team, and they also went out to do a site visit for me to determine where we are and how we could respond to the demands that presently exist and all of the applications that we presently have. Unfortunately, there's a lot of groundwork that must be done that has yet to be started as it pertains to that project, work related to a master plan. I've spoken to the company that was previously engaged by the former administration, and absolutely nothing has been done yet. In fact, they got a letter advising them that they were awarded this project probably about 2 or 3 days before the election. So nothing has been done in terms of creating a master plan to do the work at Prospect Ridge to begin to draw out how it will actually look. There's been no feasibility study and no topography study to actually provide us with the lay of the land, what lumps and bumps presently exist, and how we would have to fill it in. And so we are not in a position yet to determine the infrastructural cost. We think it will be great, but that is yet to be determined because we'll get all that information from the feasibility and the topography study. And so we have a lot of groundwork to do, and we want to do it right. My technical team.
And then she said, and I like this one where she said, here's my favorite line. When they were asked.
Well, what I will say is the fact that you have a billboard that has a photo, but you have no master plan. One wants to know where that photo came from. So did they grab it off of Google? I don't know. But we have no master plan, which will actually provide you with the completed look of the subdivision. And the fact that that doesn't exist means I don't understand where the numbers came from for the land cost and where the pictures came from.
Well, what a time. What a time. Okay, what a time. All right. Before we switch gears, I want to bring up something else. So that was a big thing, right? We understand now that the former administration there should be some answering to that by far. Like right away, there should already be a statement. That press conference happened at 11. It ended at 12:22 or something. There should already have been a statement by 5:14 saying that what Mrs. Jo Beth Colby was talking was utter foolishness. And here we go again with the Progressive Liberal Party making people believe, or, what would normally be the speech? Hiding their incompetence by blaming the present government. Something like that. That sounds like a press statement that either side would give at this point. So I was expecting something similar. But before we go, we got to switch gears. Before we switch gears with my guest, and I don't think it's too far from that as well, because we're talking. There's something you said, Cecil, that will work perfectly with my guest when we talk about race and space, because you're trying to say, folks, we too ghetto to be in, some people too ghetto for Prospect Ridge, and we doing low cost housing. I saw where you was going. Negro. I saw you.
And you grew up in Lizzie. I know what y'all did through Lizzie. That whole area, moved there.
Don't forget, I start from Miami Street. Move on up, boy. I tell you. Look at God. Won't he do it? Okay. So something that else is of note and very interesting, of course, CA, you know what happened here. We now have Hiram Lewis has decided to put his hat in the ring. Put his hat in the ring. He says, free at last. He quotes Sir Cecil Wallace Whitfield. Sorry. I remember when I got it, it said free at last, free to run, free to lead the F&M. Anyways, so he goes on to talk about 50 years ago, free, 5 score and 10, you know how they go. You're just going to add all kind of time, right? But that he didn't do the score. 50 years ago, a proud political movement. The Free National Movement was established at Jimmy Shepherd's house on Spring Hills Farm in Fox Hill on October 20th, 1971. The Dissident 8, led by Sir Cecil Wallace Whitfield and proud freedom fighters, established a movement whose philosophy is based fundamentally on transparency, good governance, equality, a belief in our youth, and a strong belief in the democratic principles. I said, hallelujah. Today, we salute Sir Cecil Wallace Whitfield, Kendall G. L. Isaacs, Hubert A. Ingram, Tommy Turnquest, and Hubert A. Minnis. Also, John Henry Bostwick. We salute every freedom fighter who stood firm notwithstanding the victimization and persecution for daring to be called FNMs, who were molded through those early and sometimes very painful but hopeful days. Today, and let me focus now. Today, we have a new cadre of freedom fighters who believe in our foundational philosophy. Today, we have many FNMs throughout our beautiful archipelago that yearn for a recommitment to that philosophy. They desire for a more inclusive, re-engineered, revamped, and to be reconnected to our political movement that values all people. The decision of so many FNMs to decide to not vote for us on September 16, 2021, in spite of our productivity, sends a clear and powerful message to our organization. It is time for a change. With the Free National Movement's leadership becoming vacant in the coming weeks, the Member of Parliament for Central Grand Bahama, Hiram Lewis, has stated he will be offering himself for the post. The party's one-day convention is slated for November 27th in Nassau, and while it is unknown how many will vie for the leader post, that is the only position some 500 delegates will decide at that time. This is the first convention the party has had since 2016, even though they should have been held every 2 years in keeping with the FNM's constitution. Mr. Lewis, currently serving his second consecutive term in the House of Assembly, proudly states that as the FNM celebrates its 50th anniversary this month, he has been around and supported the party all his life. One of the founding fathers of the party, Maurice Moore, is a close family friend and as such is a mentor to him. For his involvement in civic blah, 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 blah. Mr. Lewis suggests there is a need to rebuild the party, reconnecting the base, recognizing the valuable contributions of its foot soldiers. He believes he is the right person for the job and encourages all supporters to join his team as he vies to get the FNM back on track. I feel like I should, can I just say, right on. Go on, Hiram. Go on, Hiram. What happened? You ain't got nothing to say?
I got confused. I wasn't sure who is writing the letter or not. Was this a first person or the third person? Because if he referred to himself as the third person, and so it looked like someone was writing this on his behalf, and not necessarily he is writing it to announce that he will be running. So I got a little confused there.
So what you're saying? Hiram for leader. I like. Go ahead, Mr. Lewis. Go ahead, boy. Go ahead.
Is this the same gentleman who said we got the hot water in the tub?
Put the tin tub outside. Cowboy days. Yeah. Totally.
No votes.
You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian Radio 96.9. No votes. No votes, Cecil?
Absolutely none.
That man gonna take at least 10. And especially if
you
somebody
need to endorse somebody. That's what you need to. Endorse somebody.
He's a freedom fighter. It's time. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. When we come back, Nicolette Bethel, Dr. Nicolette Bethel joins us. We'll be back right after this.
What happened to you? You look like you lost your paycheck.
Man, I just realized I got scammed out of a bunch of money. They said I won this contest and just needed me to send them some money so I could collect. I mean, to expedite something. Or was it to smooth the process?
Man, you're smarter than that. Protect yourself against scams and fraud by following these tips. If you know you didn't enter a competition, you can't win. Never pay to receive a cash prize. If you're being asked, you're being scammed. Check trusted internet sites for verification of information given to you. Do not give your banking details to people you don't know. If it sounds too good to be true, it is. Monitor your bank account regularly for any questionable transactions. Get more information at getmoneysmartbahamas.com.
Have you heard about the COVID vaccine raffle? If you are vaccinated against COVID-19, you can enter to win amazing prizes like food store gift certificates, hotel stays, beach excursions, and so much more. Even if you are previously vaccinated, you can still enter to win. The COVID vaccine is free, safe, and protects you from severe COVID-19 infections. Don't delay. Get vaccinated today and enter to win. Visit www.vaxbahamas.com to register.
J.S. Johnson Insurance Agents are the best. Reliable service, we've been on the scene, protected since 1919. J.S. Johnson Insurance has the test. Always covered me. J.S. Johnson Insurance, peace of mind.
You have a new text message from Scotia.
Scotiabank is adding text messaging to its communication channels to keep customers updated in quicker and safer ways. As of November 4th, Scotiabank will be using text messaging to provide notifications on the minimum payment required for your credit card and due dates. Customers may continue to access their credit card statements on Scotia Online or through our mobile banking app. Learn more by contacting customer care-bahamas at scotiabank.com or call 356-1697.
This is Guardian Radio, your station for up-to-the-minute news, intelligent, interactive, and engaging conversation. 96.9 FM.
You have to be strong in today's world. Keep your focus and what you believe in, how to achieve all your dreams. Keep moving forward. Never accept less than who you are. Live your best life. Be strong and free. It's the It Back. With the hash of black. It's the It Back. With the hash of black. It's the It Back. With the hash of black. It's the It Back.
And we're back. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Joining me is my good friend, C.A. Dury. And soon my guest, Nicolette Bethel, will be joining us in a second. I want to read this text before I switch. Someone said, not someone, C. Alan Johnson, my friend in Grand Bahama, he said, I want you to quote me, Nahaja. I want you to quote me. I want you to say, you know the F&M is in trouble when from F&M country, Iram, Do Nothing Lewis, as he is known on Grand Bahama, thinks he can be leader. You can quote me on this. Well, these people ain't saved. Where these unsaved people come from throwing dead blows?
Something you said, Nahaja, I did not quite understand.
Mm-hmm.
What all positions will be available or to contest for the F&M's convention? I didn't understand what you said.
I didn't say what positions would be there to contest, actually.
Oh, I
there's
thought
a
you
list.
said only the leader leadership position, and not the
Did I say
chairman.
that? That would have been inaccurate. I'm not certain. So I if I said that, was an error.
No problem then.
Yeah,
I just want to clarify that. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Someone said the billboard goes to show how the minister administration operated for 4+ years. What a sham this administration was. Someone says, are we surprised that the subdivision was an election plot? Nevertheless, what we need to think about is how is row housing or row housing, like the row housing, like the brownstones in New York, where everyone can get some privacy and a little yard. So only the prime minister can say my government. Okay, so we got some things there. I got joining us, and I love that we're having this show right now because Cecil actually hit on something. Of course, one of my favorite people, someone who we both consider to be one of the country's premier minds as well, Dr. Nicolette Bethel joins us. Yes, I did say premier minds. Don't act extra. Dr. Nicolette Bethel joining us on the show. Doc, one of the main reasons why we were even planning the show was because the Columbus statue a few weeks ago and talking about race in space. But Cecil just found me a perfect segue from the conversation we were having, just in terms of high-end communities, right? Where can we have low-cost housing in high-end communities? He kind of intimated that some people don't fit in certain areas. And I want, in this whole construct, you've done studies on this. And one of the things that I love is that, I didn't know what to name or how to name it. until you mentioned it, because I remember all I did was go to parks and when I was off to school and enjoy the scenery. No space was off limits. Everything was more serene, more peace of mind. Nature was a part of our everyday. There were tours, bike trails, all of these things. But home ain't none of that but sidewalks. We got a lot of sidewalks, right? So
not enough. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Welcome to the show, Doc.
Hallelujah. Praise the Lord. Okay.
Tell me your thoughts on, first of all, what is race in space? Your study on it, and then let's talk about being bougie.
Okay, wait, back up. First of all, I want to tell you why you put me on after CA. CA is like Junkanoo. You can't follow him.
No, don't worry. He is Junkanoo. Too many colors. Bad music.
The next thing is, okay, so race in space is something that I'm thinking about in the Caribbean. What people have done around the world is looked at what we call spatial justice, right? Which is the idea that it started with thinking in France. There's a guy by the name of Henri Lefebvre who started to talk about the right to the city, the right that citizens have to be able to access their city, to be able to occupy, to live in, to be able to be human in their city. And so he was very much for the creation of public spaces. And then this intersects with studies that have been done elsewhere about things like spatial justice. And there's a guy by the name of Edward Soja he's a geographer, and he's talked about the idea that inequality in society is replicated on the ground. And that really is the only way in which you can ensure that inequality perpetuates itself. I mean, there's a lot of other techniques, but by inscribing it actually on the ground, it means that it continues and we don't even know why it continues, right? So in the Bahamas, for example, we have done really well economically throughout our history of independence. We're not doing so well economically now, but compared with the rest of the Caribbean after they became independent, the Bahamas has really done really, really well. But we still have massive inequality, and in fact, the inequality is growing. And so the question is why and how, and what are we doing to not only to see that happening, but how have we, as independent Bahamian citizens, perpetuated those inequalities that we inherited from the minority rule? And one of the things is that we did not do is we did not reformulate our space. We didn't think, if we're going to get to Columbus in a minute, we didn't think about the impact of public monuments on citizenry, right? We didn't notice that even though we're talking about being independent and so on, we have a really interesting setup when you look at the monuments in Rawson and Parliament Square. We have the great Queen Victoria, and I'm really not doing this to cause any trouble to Queen Victoria's statue. Let me drop. But you have this amazing Queen Victoria up on this pedestal way above everybody's head. And then across the road, you have our first Governor General, our freedom fighter, like not just the freedom fighters freeing themselves from the PLP, but the freedom fighters freeing themselves from minority rule. Milo Butler, he don't have no legs. He's not standing up. He doesn't even look like a big man. And he was a big man looking up at the Queen. So that is a message that we inadvertently send, and we have not been aware. We were not aware enough at the time. Everybody was too worried about how much it was going to cost to put a statue there, right?
Yeah.
But we were not aware of at the time of what that message does, how we control that space and what that control of space does to the citizens. And the Columbus statue is another example, right? Nobody thought about what is the message that you're sending. It would not necessarily be so problematic, although I'll let people discuss the problematics of it. If in the 50 years that we have been independent, we had actually made other monuments to ourselves, right? That we had had these discussions, we had looked at how we treat our public space. But we don't have public space, and we don't have public space even insofar as we have a really interesting set of issues, i.e., we must be the I don't know if there are any other countries like this. I haven't actually done a survey, but we must be one of the few countries in the world that does not see it necessary to create a residence for our head minister, not the head of state. We have a residence for the head of state. It's a colonial residence, but we still have it, kind of, sort of. But our prime ministers have lived in their own homes. And this suggests that we don't take the creation of our country seriously, because we still see that position as something that, you know, I don't know, it's like a favor that we give to people.
Yeah.
We get to be prime minister. Isn't that nice? It's not like you take on the responsibility for running the country. And part of the responsibility for running the country means that you need to leave your house and move into a place that reinforces the fact that you are the servant of the people. You're living in their space. You know, we look at it the other way around, right? We see it as saying, oh, we don't want the prime minister to have anything better than anybody else. But that's not what it is. That's not what a prime minister's residence is. A prime minister's residence is the country's base, right? The place where you put it there so that you can control, okay, this may not work so well, but you can control corruption. You can maintain a staff that can make things continuous. You can have protocol in place. You can have support in place. You can have security in place. And all of this is for the head of the government, not the head of state, because that's the governor general at this point, or the president. But the head of the government should have a residence. And the fact that we not only don't have a residence, but we, in all of the discussions that I've seen about the governor or the prime minister's residence, think that this is a waste of time, that this is a frivolity. That shows how little we understand about society and citizenry and space and what that all means.
Yeah.
So that ain't really talking about race. That's talking more about culture. Yeah, I'm gonna stop.
No, and can I add something just to that? Why I think the residence is so important too, because right now we've been fortunate, I think, and fortunate is an interesting term, but all of our prime ministers have come with their own level of affluence. So is it that we anticipate that all of our prime ministers will come in wealthy? What if it was a teacher that we elected and the teacher lived in Pinewood? Are we expecting that the teacher's residence or that the prime minister should be in a community where they're not safe? And when I say not safe, not because Pinewood is unsafe, but that we're talking about meeting dignitaries, and there should be a stature level increase. And it shouldn't matter your economic. And I think that it also shows that we have a belief that only the wealthy can lead or govern. So I do believe that having a one central house then means that anyone from any stature, any financial background, once you're competent and we vote you in, then has a space that is representative of that office. And I always thought that too. It's just, listen, what if a preacher decides that they want to lead and they've been living in the church? You expect for the church now to be an appropriate place for the prime minister to live. So I agree with you completely on that, just as a side note that I've been thinking of it as well.
So if I want to draw out a little bit and talk about how we find inequality replicated on the ground. First of all, we maintain segregation. Like, we did away with segregation in terms of, I don't know what to say, in terms of, I can't find the words. But anyway, there was a moment at which a resolution was passed in the House of Assembly, going all the way back to 1956, which said that Bahamians should not be discriminated against in their country. And then in our Constitution, it says that there is no discrimination on the basis of color, creed, race, etc., etc. So we have it enshrined in our Constitution, but we do not have it, we don't follow through with that on the ground. In fact, what we have done over the past 50 years is increase inequality, right? We have the whole idea of the ghetto, and maybe this goes back to what CA was saying. We have this idea that we need to sequester people away. If you get to a certain level of affluence, you then move behind walls and gates, and you get into the gated community. And this is not something that we invented in the Bahamas. This is something we imported, right? Because the gated community is one of those things that Soja points out to as being part of the spatial injustice that is replicated on the ground. And to take it further, I would argue that the fact that we don't even think it's necessary that Nassau, which is a city of almost 250,000 people, or probably over 250,000 people, which is a small city by other standards, but it is 250,000 to 300,000 people who do not have a government. All right? It is not reasonable to expect the government that governs the entire country of the Bahamas to deal with the issues that the city of Nassau faces. But that is the situation we find ourselves in. And the result of that is that when we talk about spatial justice, the only place that you can get a reasonable standard of living, and the only place in this country where you can get a sensible standard of health care is in Nassau. Because instead of investing in the country, the government that we have in place is focused on Nassau. And you might say that's because 70% of the population lives here, et cetera, et cetera. And I would say, well, why does 70% of the population live
Exactly.
here? Because that's where all our infrastructure is. And all our infrastructure is here because we decided we don't need a municipal government to deal with that infrastructure. There was no reason on earth that we should still have, and forgive me for saying this, but that we should still have a Ministry of Works. That's a colonial institution, right?
Say it again.
Every
No
island,
need for a Ministry of Works.
No, every island should have its own works agency. The Ministry of Works is a municipal responsibility. It is not a national responsibility. All right? It may become national if you're going to be like FDR and create a whole new deal. But then what you do is you create the policy at the national level, and you have agencies on the ground at the local level that implement the policy. Right? The idea of the Ministry of Works is such a holdover from the British colonies.
Hold that thought.
Yeah.
Hold on. I love that where you're going. We got to take a quick break. It's amazing how quickly these breaks come. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Dr. Nicolette Bethel talking race in space. C.A. Nuri, he's burning up with a question. I see him. He's making all kinds of facial expressions and gestures. I know he has questions for you. We will be back right after this. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian Radio 96.9 FM.
Sugar, sugar, let's get sugary. Softer, smoother, and amazing skin. Oh, sugar, sugar, we're the sugar ladies. Giving you skin soft as a baby's. Goodbye hair, we'll take good care of you.
Come visit us at Bahar Treat Spa on East Bay Street. Contact us at 323-6711 or visit us online at www.baharetreat.com. You have a new text message from Scotia.
Scotiabank is adding text messaging to its communication channels to keep customers updated in quicker and safer ways. As of November 4th, Scotiabank will be using text messaging to provide notifications on the minimum payment required for your credit card and due dates. Customers may continue to access their credit card statements on Scotia Online or through our mobile banking app. Learn more by contacting customer care-bahamas at scotiabank.com or call 356-1697.
Calling all HR professionals. It's Human Resources Professionals Week. Join us for the 41st Annual PSHRM Conference and Expo, Friday, October 29, 2021. Hear from our 18 industry-leading speakers, enjoy lunch powered by Craven, visit exhibitors in our virtual expo, and so much more. To learn more, email us at conferencebshrm@gmail.com. We'll see you at BSHRM Conference 2021.
Loss of family members is very isolating, and people who have experienced loss appreciate when others have shared their grief. If you can't be there in person, go to the Nassau Guardian's website online at thenassauguardian.com and visit our obituary link. The Nassau Guardian's interactive obituary link allows you to read the funeral announcement, express condolences, or place photos on the online guest book for one full year. Losing a loved one is painful, but that pain isn't the worst thing to happen. Friends, loved ones, colleagues, and neighbors who ignore the loss compound the pain. Should the bereaved family wish to place the obituary and photos on our obituary site, just contact the Guardian's Funeral Industry Partners or the Nassau Guardian. Remember, there isn't one magic right thing to say to someone experiencing loss that will make the loss less painful or easier to bear. The Nassau Guardian's obituary link, available online at thenassauguardian.com.
This is Guardian Radio, your station for up-to-the-minute news, intelligent, interactive, and engaging conversation. 96.9 FM.
You have to be strong in today's world. Keep your focus and what you believe in, how to achieve all your dreams. Keep moving forward. Never accept.
And we're back. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. Before I go any further, again, I want my Bahamian authors, please, we're going to start this again in the new year. So I want to get as many books as I can when we start this conversation again with Bahamian authors. Really want to highlight them. I really am in love with this author, The Strong Ones by Dr. Giovanna Jones. This is when I tell you, this is one heck of a strong workbook. I love it. There's a chapter on boundaries, characteristics of the strong one. I love that book. Also, The Higher the Monkey Climbs. I'm really excited. I haven't started to read it yet. It's a novel by A.K. Coakley. Yeah. Dr. Bethel, I know you got like 16 books and I never read one. I ain't got one book. I can bring that up. My Truth by Shankola D. Roll. CA even got a book. Even CA got a book. What a time. What a time. I got CA Neri, Dr. Nicolette Bethel joining me on the show. Welcome back, ladies. Lady and gent, right? Because I'm a lady too, but I'm the host, so it doesn't matter. Dr. Bethel, you were talking about it, Ministry of Works. We're talking race in space, right? With Dr. Nicolette Bethel. A very poignant study and topic that you've been doing for a while, and really looking at the Bahamas. I just love this research and the study that you've done, Doc, in that it touches so strongly to what we see. And I have this thing where there are some embedded issues in country with us that we don't even realize that we are still functioning under this unseen barrier of colonialism and racism and in country, right? But I want CA, I know CA has this burning question, and before he gets any darker from the burning, let him ask away.
Just like to say, it's 2 books, but that I digress. I don't need to
bring that up. Okay.
I don't need to mention 2 books. Yes. but moving forward, you see, I appreciate the project that Dr. Bethel is doing. I understand it and I see it, but it seems as if it's a topic about value and how we value ourselves and what we have done to show our value. My concern is we know that we are archipelago in general, and that we have to duplicate resources, right? It is hard to say that you would like for government to create the same value in Auckland that you have in New Providence, when it's so expensive to just create one in New Providence and to start completely over again and redevelop it and redesign a hospital, per se, right? Or the amenities that Nassau has. It doesn't seem feasible nor affordable. And I'm concerned that you're speaking of what you need to do without putting forward a price tag. And without the price tag, I find that it won't happen.
Okay, so my response to that is this idea that we are unique and we have to do this duplication is it's totally erroneous, right? Think about the United States of America. Don't they duplicate across the United States of America? Every state has the same kinds of things. Every city has the same kinds of things. This is a duplication, but they don't see it in the same way that we see it. We see it this way because we still have this colonial government that believes the central government is supposed to put these things in these places for these subjects who won't get the sense and move out of these empty spaces. The way it works in other places. Look, the things that we inhabit outside of New Providence How many cities or towns do we have in this country? We don't call our centers of population towns. We call them settlements. And there's a difference between a town and a settlement. A settlement is a place where people are sent to congregate or just happen to congregate, and you don't need to have any infrastructure for them because it's just a settlement. There's no autonomy, there's no self-determination there. But a township or a town in every other place in the world is self-governing. And if it's self-governing, then it attracts those things. If you look and see what happens in any other place in the world where you have a town, then you have a corporate entity, then you have the ability for that town to raise its own taxes, and then they can put things in place to attract people so that they can generate the money. There is absolutely no reason on this earth why Exuma should not have a hospital.
Yeah.
What Exuma puts into the treasury in terms of land taxes alone, and it has a hospital. It's just that the central government ain't seeing fit to make it function like a government. But whose decision is that? And then when I ask people in the central government why is the case, they say, well, we can't get no doctors to go there. And I'm like, why are y'all sending doctors there? If Exuma was attracting doctors there, you wouldn't be able to keep doctors in Nassau. Because when you go to that hospital, you have housing that is attached to the hospital, that is up above the hospital, that looks over the most beautiful harbor in this entire archipelago, and that is saying something, right? And there ain't no container port blocking the view of that harbor. And the only way, and it is unconscionable. I don't care how much it costs CA. It is unconscionable for any national government in this country to allow the entire southern Bahamas to be without a hospital with outside of easy reach. If you break your leg, if you have an impacted tooth, if you have a difficult childbirth anywhere in the southern Bahamas, you gotta get an ambulance and come to Nassau. What kind of foolishness is that?
Yeah,
So
and
how much does that cost, CA?
CA,
Ain't it cheaper to build a hospital?
I just say there's a cost barrier, and I hear you. I'm not saying
No. There's no cost barrier. There's a brain barrier. There ain't no cost barrier.
That's right. Say it again. It's a brain barrier.
There's a brain barrier.
And places like Exuma, places like Abaco, places like Andros, places like Eleuthera, I appreciate that they need hospitals and amenities, right? I understand it's frustrating that they do not have it, right?
It's not frustrating. No. Frustrating is the wrong word. It's unconscionable.
And you know what's unconscionable? When you go to Princess Margaret Hospital, the national hospital, and you have to wait 6 hours to be served, right? My point is, we don't even have enough money to fix that. And
No. We have
don't say that.
CA, I'm sorry. We have enough money.
We have enough money. We have money. We've always had money. The problem is
we have enough money.
We spent $1 billion with no reports over 4.5 years with PHA.
Exactly. The Bahamas got more money than sense. We have money.
Say it again, Doc.
The point is that what we have, though, is we also have a number of, we need to rethink. There's so much money in this country, and it just comes in and it goes back out again. And we need to think about how to keep some of that here. And in New Providence, that's one problem. But I would argue that there are people in Abaco and people in Exuma who would be absolutely willing. And when I say people, I'm not necessarily talking about Exumians. I'm talking about residents, right? Who would be willing to bring their money and invest it in Exuma. They will not do so because at this point in time, because every piece of money that comes in as revenue in this country has to be deposited in the consolidated fund. And they don't trust how that's going to work. Where they come from, they can make a donation to the township, to the town council, and see the results of that donation. I know of cases where people have made donations of huge amounts to the government of the Bahamas for X, Y, and Z in specific islands, and that money ain't reached yet. And this is donations that have gone back 20 years. That money has got caught up in Nassau, funding Nassau. We want to talk about this. Nassau don't pay Andros for the water that it gets. Nassau's supposed to pay Andros. Nassau does not send back the money that it gets in land taxes from Abaco or Exuma.
Eleuthera or Exuma. Exactly.
Any of those. We don't send it back. We keep it here because we said, oh, we can't afford to do that. But we can afford to do it. We just defend.
And just as a note too, we centralize everything here, so there is no need to go anywhere else. Idas that was shot through years ago. I mean, decades ago. Why do we always have now? Mind you, whatever iteration of CO, the University of the Bahamas in Grand Bahama was a weak one because there was no interest. And Nicolette, Dr. Bethel, I'll say this with you on the show. Whatever was built in Grand Bahama wasn't built like the campus we would see in New Providence. So it didn't feel university-like. It felt like a building with classes. But I believe that university draw people. It draws young people. So if there's people, then there is food. You need to feed them. There's housing that is a requirement. Entertainment that is a requirement. We just seem to always put everything here and nothing on the Family Island. So we don't have a need. And there must be one day a bigger conversation on increasing our market share by not being, no, that's a whole other show. Let me not even go there, because I was going to say we need to open our borders as well to people coming and living in country to increase the market share as well. That's a whole other show, but we ain't ready for that conversation yet.
But it's related. It's related. I mean, I think the thing is that, so we have to be careful because we are so socialized and educated in such a way to think of everything as having to emanate from Nassau. And what I'm trying to say is that if you have spatial justice, what you do is you create the landscape. That is all you have to do. If you think about how the United States, how North America was settled, Washington did not fund Texas. Washington did not. The United States, the center, the capital, did not fund any of the states as went out. I'm not necessarily saying that we should keep the states model that the United States has, because that has its own problems. But the more autonomy you devolve from the center to the periphery, the more you will find can happen. So rather than thinking about we must build X and Y, what we need to be saying is we must change the ground. We must give the people in every other, let's say, population center to start with. All right? Give people in every population center in this country some level of self-determination. Mm-hmm. So if you go to Canada, for example, in Canada, the way in which it works is you settle a piece of the land, right? And this is I don't necessarily want to say this is the right way to do it because they also cleared the land of the people who are already there. But you settle a piece of land when you have a certain population, then you found a city, then you found enough cities, you found a province or a territory which is governed by another province. So at this point in time, at this point in our history, we have the ability to have, I would argue, at least 6 centers of population that are able to self-fund and attract people. Mm-hmm. Besides New Providence, maybe I'm overstating with 6. Besides New Providence, you have Abaco, you have Grand Bahama, you have Eleuthera, you have Exuma. So that's, I've named 4.
That's 5 actually. You're good. Oh,
5.
beside New Providence, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, besides New Providence, I've named 4. All right. So what you do is you go much further than the local government legislation. That theoretically gives you the ability to do this, but we don't practice it because the local government authorities, they're just tax collecting agencies. They collect the taxes more efficiently and deposit them in the central consolidated fund where Nassau takes the money, right? But what you do is you say, okay, you have the right for X, Y, and Z. So there is no good reason. I'm dreaming, right? But I can imagine Andrus being able to create bedroom communities for New Providence so that people in New Providence don't have to live in New Providence. If you got to live, right now it takes people an hour to an hour and a half to 2 hours to get to work when you got to factor in schools, right? Why not take that time, drop your child off in their school in Andrus, catch the ferry and come to Nassau and work and catch your ferry back?
50. Right? Well, how long is the ferry? I think the flight is 15 minutes. The ferry would be what? 45? I think it's
45 minutes. And people do this in British Columbia with a 2.5 hour ferry ride.
To Seattle, eh? Don't they go to Seattle from BC to Seattle?
Well, there are people who live in the Seattle Gulf Islands who come into Seattle, and the people who live in the Gulf Islands in the Straits of Juan de Fuca, and go to Vancouver or to Victoria or wherever, right?
Yeah.
And create centers of population, and thereby begin to equalize, and so that you get little cities. Georgetown is waiting to be a city, but it can't be a city right now. Georgetown dying to be a city.
Yeah.
Right? Marsh Harbor thought it was a city, but we found out that it was not a city because cities have certain things that Marsh Harbor did not have. For example, cities have sanitation and sewer systems. All right? The only two places that I am aware of, and you could correct me, that I'm aware of that have sanitation and sewer systems are Nassau and Freeport. And the Bahamian government didn't put the one in Freeport. That private company that owns Freeport put that in. Freeport is a company town. All right? It's because we sitting here in Nassau and we have to decide whether we have the money to put in the sewer. No. Let the people put in their own sewage systems.
Dr. Nicolette Bethel, CA Nuri, race in space. We haven't even touched the surface, Doc. We have to do this again in the second part. CA has been, side texting me with comments and questions. He's scared now. You finally work your magic, and now he's afraid. So that's good stuff. Dr. Bethel, thank you so much for the time. CA Nuri, you as well. Thank you both. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. We'll see you tomorrow. You're listening 96.9. See you tomorrow. We're out.